All right, here we are. Star Trek Section 31.
Oh boy.
Pause for applause.
Right?
Woo! What a whirlwind.
Oh yeah, I know. Jeez.
I paid Paramount Plus for the whole seat, but I only needed the edge. And humor. Just
There was definitely humor.
limit or a bottomless pit.
There was definitely humor in this film.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't understand it. I'm just like, is that a joke? Like,
That's not supposed to be a joke. I can't tell. Was he just making a statement, or was that supposed to be like pause for laughter? Well, hold on. So we have Section 31, right? We can go through that. This will be probably filled with spoilers, as you can tell just right off the bat.
nothing happens in the movie. So I mean, in reality, spoilers don't matter. I mean, like, there's nothing that happens. There's nothing of significance here. There's no real character development.
I mean, there's a semi arc, I guess.
But is Giorgio any different from the beginning to the end of this movie? I mean, she's doing exactly what she's doing at the end of the movie as she's doing it. She didn't learn some big lesson or anything like that. She just
So what we have here is a story that takes former Emperor Giorgio, now head of a nightclub space station out on the fringes of space outside Federation territory. I kind of like that they didn't explain that, but it also seems kind of
well, I mean,
like stupid. Like just because she was an empress in another reality
yeah.
doesn't mean like she has any connections here.
Well, no, but I think it plays into the idea that she's good at networking and managing groups and things like that. And she was kind of debaucherous as they described her in Discovery, so it would make sense that she would gravitate during the same thing in this time period too, right?
Yeah, she's just hyper
Yeah.
competent, and she was able. So this is the suspension of disbelief, right? She's just hyper competent, and however she did it, she's now head of a space station
Mhm.
in a short period of time. So great. Okay, moving on from that, recruited by Section 31 agents to help them steal a doomsday device. Turns out the doomsday device is connected to Giorgio somehow and will ultimately cause a bunch of chaos and open the floodgates for the Terran universe to invade the Prime universe. That stopped. The person behind it was a former love interest in some flashbacks back when Giorgio was attempting to become the emperor, empress, whatever. And I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding.
Of what Section 31 is.
Yeah, exactly. There's what Alex Kurtzman wants Section 31 to be
Mhm.
in Star Trek, his passion project for some sort of spy game, which he was able to make. Unfortunately for the rest of us, it wasn't good, but it shows me a complete lack of understanding of why Section 31 was interesting when it was introduced.
The way that I always visioned, like, what Section 31 was just like a couple people passing down like security codes that were kind of like built-in back doors to whatever the heck they needed. And I'm sure you're going to describe in a moment what your view of what Section 31 actually is, but continue. Sorry.
The reason Section 31 mattered to us, the audience, is because of what Section 31 was meant to represent and how it was meant to make us feel with regards to our perception of the idealistic utopian federation. The revelation that this federation could have been built off of or how it was able to achieve this level of provision where money doesn't exist was built off of this offshoot, this department, this branch of the Federation Charter that operates outside of the law, out of their own laws, and is doing the things and making the hard choices that the Federation is unwilling to touch, which then begs the question from the audience, is that okay? And that's what you're supposed to take from it, not the fact that it's, oh, super exciting, Section 31, super spy mystery. It's the fact that it exists at all, and its concept erodes the very fabric of our perception of the Federation and what it's supposed to represent. Because this exists, this is out protecting the peace, making the hard choices. We thought that this idealism was feeding itself. Turns out, no, there's just some entity in the background that's pulling some strings to keep things a certain way, making those hard choices, those morally dubious decisions in order to maintain the status quo. And that's a lot more thought provoking than what they created with this movie.
At least this is just a guess, but just thinking about how I think Hollywood operates these days, I think that the Section 31, the idea, the intrigue that like this thing does, not only does it sound cool, but then the background behind it's cool. So that sells better than a movie called Starfleet Intelligence, right? And but I guess you could have called it anything, but I think it's just kind of like a branding thing, a way for them to try to hook people in that might not be interested. But
Yeah, but they already tried
well,
this.
I know,
They
and
already
that's
tried
but
this
I
in Discovery when
understand.
they're like, "Oh, Section 31," huh? And then like we're on the other end going, like to the fact that like Section 31 was mentioned,
Right.
and it's like, no, like,
Yeah. I mean, well, the problem is that they don't realize, and maybe we're wrong, but most of the fans that are watching this show are Star Trek fans, right? People like us. I don't know if
as much as they don't
there's
want it. And that's another big thing is I don't think they want only Star Trek fans watching it, and that's fine, expanding it to a broader audience. But I actually think that there's like, if Star Trek fans watch Star Trek, that will detract from mass adoption elsewhere, like the Star Wars numbers.
right.
If Star Trek fans are allowed in,
It's not going to be cool anymore.
yeah, it's not going to be Star Wars cool. And it's Star Wars cool and Star Wars money we want to make.
Mhm. Which they're failing. I mean, like Star Wars just is dead. I mean,
No, but that's not in the eyes of the producers, right? They see it as a supremely profitable
mhm,
business that has prevailed since the 70s. In real life, pick
mhm,
any modern country and how it tells its own story as the good guys, knowing full well that no long-standing modern nation has been on the right side of history throughout its entire lifespan, and that it should be okay to critique and analyze that history to make better decisions for the future. But our perception of the Federation up until this point has been purely good. They've been the good guys. We've been through a number of crews who have been attempting to be morally good most of the time, with the exception of some evil admiral shenanigans. And Section 31 has a very interesting story bit that upends that concept and that perception somewhat, because you realize that that goodness has come at a price that the public will never know about. And that's what makes it most compelling, not the spy elements. There's nothing to say you can't pull off one and the same within the same story, but that's not what was done here. And that's what leads me to believe that they just didn't get why Section 31 was interesting to us, the fans, the audience, even newcomers, why it could be interesting to them. It's not a beat by beat spy agency depicted in hundreds of spy movies before this. It should be asking the question, should this even exist? It has existed. This utopia came at a price. Everyone assumed that the utopia spoke for itself and that it works on its own merit, or that its success and continued existence operates on its own merit. But it clearly doesn't, because you have this agency. How does that turn the world up on its head? I almost feel like, and maybe that leads me into one of my other questions on the Alex Kurtzman thing. Like, why does he want to make it so totally different? And I think that that's it. It's either an ambivalence or some sort of like animosity towards the fact is like, like like someone showed him the next generation. He was like, what's all this nerdy talky junk?
well,
Like who watches this?
and that's what I was gonna say. Like, I honestly, I don't think I have seen enough of Alex Kurtzman's other stuff before Star Trek to give like an informed idea about like what.
I think you would be surprised as to what he worked on if you actually looked up the IMDb.
Let's look it up. What
Let me
has he
look up
worked on?
because he was with Bad Robot
Mhm.
and then split off. So he was with J.J. Abrams and all J.J. Abrams crap. Oh man, he was part of the Mummy. You remember that one?
Where? We didn't.
Tom Cruise Mummy.
He didn't make that though, did he?
Yeah, he's a producer.
Oh, he was director and co-writer of The Mummy. Oh, the
Yep.
2017 Mummy, though, that was the piece of garbage with Tom Cruise.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm saying it wasn't, I mean, you made me think it was
The
the
Brendan
Brendan
Fraser.
Fraser.
No,
I was gonna be like,
absolutely
"No,
not.
he can't live in a world where Alex Kurtzman had anything to." That was Steven, what the hell was, I can't think of his name. Oh, yeah, okay, so let's see, The Mummy of 2017, real great. Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
here's
killed,
another gem, The Amazing
yeah, I would
Spider-Man
say that
2.
killed the franchise. Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness co-writers. I mean,
Yeah, that's because he was part of Bad Robot.
yeah,
He
I was gonna
wrote.
say
I think
not
he wrote.
really that big of a kudos. Oh, here's the best one, co-writer of Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Yeah, okay. That was the movie that broke me on Transformer movies, by the way. I saw the first one, I was like, "This is pretty bad." And I saw the second one, I'm like, "I can't be associated with this anymore." I'm kind of sad to
God.
see that he was a co-creator and executive
So
producer of
just imagine
Fringe.
there are people in Hollywood who looked at this resume and were like, "Get that man a series
Yeah.
to explain."
Not even a series, a franchise, like a beloved franchise. Like, what about these credit? Is it just because he was co-writer of the movies? I mean,
Yeah, probably.
I mean, that's what I can see is like, oh well, Transformers. I mean, those made a lot of money. He wrote 2 Star Treks already. I mean, who else do we have that's going to be able to do this better? And here we are.
No one could possibly write a good Star Trek story if you didn't do uh the Star Trek 2009 movie. As if they looked at, and this is the thing, is I think they looked at that. They looked at the Next Generation, stuff like that. They looked at the original series and the old movies, and then they looked at Star Trek 2009. I'd be like, who the watched this crap? Get me some more of Star Trek 2009. Like, who did that? Well, that was J.J. Abrams. We can't afford J.J. Abrams. So who? Well, J.J. Abrams' right-hand person, Alex Kurtzman, he writes some of that stuff too. Okay, get him in. We need more Star Trek 2009, less whatever Star Trek 6 is. Like, oh, nobody wants that. No, what, Star Trek 2?
It's like, you want us to associate
No.
with a bunch of nerds?
And I get it. Like, I do think, hey, let's again, there's a lot of good things there, right? Let's new concept, new characters.
Yeah.
Let's spice things up a bit. I just don't think Kurtzman himself or the people he surrounds himself with are talented enough to do it. And what I fear, and this is the crux of why I bring this up. I fear that studios learn the wrong lessons from something like this because they took a risk, right? Kurtzman made his passion project. He made Section 31.
Mhm.
It sucks.
He really
The
wanted
characters
this
suck.
movie too. He really
Yeah,
wanted
he,
this.
the characters suck. The story sucks. The visuals were all right. I didn't think it looked bad.
It looked like the rest
It
of the
didn't look like Star
Discovery.
Trek, but it didn't look bad.
I mean, yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like the rest of like Discovery era Star
Yeah.
Trek. I mean, it looks
Yeah.
nice, but
Visually, I thought it looked fine, and the color palette was a little muted. And I hate this thing with like the Terran universe where everything's orange, but
it's all in
um,
Mexico. That's
yeah, it's all this sepia or whatever
yeah.
filter. But I had this thing. But then maybe I think maybe he's more of just a business like sales guy. You know, he's not an artist. He's just a sales guy, and he's like, hey, we got this IP. We can put out some crap. People will watch it right, because it has the Star Trek label on it.
And
We'll churn out a few things, turn a profit, wait till it's a shriveled up husk,
right.
then leave it in the dust and move on to
And
our next
it's
venture,
sad that
right? A
that's
a couple $1,000,000 heavier.
right. And I'm saying that's it's sad that IPs are sold as commodities like this. It's basically just
Mhm.
a temporary time where you can make some money off of these properties and then, like you said, just dump them off onto somebody else. And the thing is that like I think we're kind of getting trained to kind of just accept these cycles and just have hope that the next showrunner that picks up the IP is going to do a better job. And they're
Well, we
not
saw
going
that. We
to.
saw that with what was his name? Terry something with Star Trek Picard season 3. Like he
Yeah.
did what he wanted to do.
Right.
and it was better. I didn't think it was perfect.
No.
I hated that the main villain ended up being the Borg,
Yeah, I'm sure.
but I liked everything about that, and the way that the line delivery
Mhm.
and the way that the characters interacted with each other
Yeah,
was such a vast improvement
yeah. They
over
they
the
all
first 2 seasons of Picard.
they all felt like the characters they were portraying. They really did
Yeah.
fall back into those characters, and it felt like a continuation of those characters.
And so again, I can rail against story decisions, but at least if I felt like I was watching Star Trek again. And that's good because there were concepts there. And again, I didn't necessarily like the way it ended, but there are a lot of good stuff that I did like about that season.
Mhm.
But the last thing is that I would want to touch on is what are the writers thinking? Like keep in mind, there's a lot of hands this has to go through.
Yeah.